explains he earned reward money from dungeons and that there's a limit to how much a person can eat and relax. He questions how a clueless guy like him didn't go bankrupt running a business. Jae-ho admits he thought the same thing, so he hired a professional to handle everything. Yop then asks if he's unemployed now, but he denies it, stating he has a job. Curious, he asks what his friend does. Jae-ho reveals he's a coach, the head coach of the national team. Yop asks why he said that so quietly and questions what kind of coach he is, but Jae-ho asks him to wait a moment. He then shows his phone with a match on it and asks his friend to look. Yop looks at the images on the phone. He questions if those aren't the dungeons they raided, and if they hadn't disappeared, but his friend explains it's a virtual reality sport called Battleground. Jae-ho explains that virtual reality dungeons are created, and two teams fight on that field for sport. After the war, they used espers for this new business, which became the most popular sport. He comments that it looks almost like child's play, but his friend says it's not quite like that because, among the best players, there are some who would be a match for the 7 heroes, and the Battleground World Cup ranking is a nation's pride. Yop then asks what Korea's ranking is. Jae-ho is surprised by the question. He asks if his friend is getting deaf in his old age and repeats the question about Korea's ranking. Yeop argues that since Korea had many strong espers, they should be highly ranked. To be honest, he starts to say that Korea is in last place, and Yeop's cup falls from the ledge. The two fall silent for a moment. Yeop turns and simply asks, "What?" When a great evil disappears, the one who defeated it becomes the next evil. Inside the car, Seomin Yeop turns to Baek Jae-ho and asks what he means. Baek Jae-ho states that's why their country became a weak nation in Battleground, making Yeop question how that makes sense. Seomin Yeop then deduces that the higher-ups became afraid of espers after the war, thinking they'd be challenged, and concludes they never change. Jae-ho continues, saying that's why Battleground was restricted, and the country wanted to control all strong espers, including himself. And Yup says he can imagine what happened, so he assumes all strong Korean espers went abroad to become athletes or coaches. Baek Jae-ho confirms with a laugh, saying he should have broken the legs of the scoundrels who tried to use them in the past. Yop reminds him that instead, he used his words to confront ministers and presidents because he didn't like how they took advantage of everyone. Looking in the rearview mirror, Baek Jae-ho mentions they had to start from scratch, and that the average for athletes is low. He turns to Seomin Yop to continue the topic, but is immediately cut off with a no. Jae-ho complains that he didn't even let him speak, but Yeop already knows he wants him to participate in Battleground, with the older man insisting it's a waste for someone in their prime. Seomin Yeop replies it's not a waste, and he no longer wants to live as an esper, having ended that life in the last dungeon, but Jae-ho insists it's just a sport now. He retorts that he never felt responsible, and asks if he looks like the type of person who would fight for others. Yup explains that as a young man, he fought to survive, and after becoming